Hello, everybody. Hi, welcome back at Rework It. How's it going? Hi, Jesús. Nice to see you.
Hey, Kladi, how's it going? Good to see you as well, and good to see everyone in the chat. We have a whole bunch of familiar faces.
Yes, I can see Sam and Sean, Feriut Uomo, Jason, General Kenobi, Noor, Valdoir. Ciao, Mama. Valdoir is my son. We already established that. Nice to see you. Biola is here. Fantastic. So nice to see familiar faces and new faces as well. Some in the chat helping us out, sharing all the useful clickable links. And if you're watching from YouTube, don't forget to join us on behance.net/live so we can see you in the chat, say hi to you, and of course, answer to any question you may have. And by the way, talking about the chat, let us know when you're tuning in from. I'm currently in Manchester, UK. Where are you based, Jesus?
I am in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let us know where you're watching from. Be awesome to see where. I mean, we already know that we have people from all over the world. We recognize people like Steve and Viola and Carol, who are always here with us, Ferry. So yeah, let us know where you're watching from. If you watched before, that's okay. Let us know in the chat. And if you're new, definitely let us know where you're watching from.
And I think that we do cover all the time zone because, like, for you is morning, for me is afternoon, and I know that for Sean is in New Zealand is like either night or maybe tomorrow
Yeah,
already.
I think Steve is in New Zealand as well, if I'm not mistaken. We got Baldir in Brazil.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, so why don't we jump right into Rework It? I guess I can start by sharing my screen and just talking a little bit about what Rework It is, and then we'll move on to actually reworking your files. So is my screen showing, Claudia?
Yes, it is.
All right, so if this is your first time watching, Rework It is a show where we take your files, your Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign files, and we rework them live for you. That means that we're going to give you our tips and tricks to help you improve your projects. If you want to submit your work, make sure that you go into iamkladi.com/reworkit, iamkladi.com/reworkit. And this is what the page looks like. Very easy to do, or very easy to submit. All you need to do is click on the Submit Your Design button, and this window will pop up. You can enter your email, add your files, your name, your Behance profile, because we want to showcase your work. So make sure that you submit that, a data consent, and let us know what apps you use. You may have used more apps than this. That's okay. Just let us know which of these you've used. And also, make sure that you leave any specific question or issue that you may have with your file so that we can address it on the stream. Again, the website is iamkladi.com/reworkit. Make sure that you submit your files because we have another Rework It coming up in 2 weeks. So we want to have some files ready for that. So make sure that you submit today. And today we're going to get started with you, Kladi, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I just wanted to say on that topic that we know already, we can break the news. Rework It is going to continue to stay here on Adobe Live, at least for a little bit. So make sure to submit your file because we are currently looking at new files. So if you haven't submitted your file, maybe you did already, submit again or submit a new file. We look forward to see many more files in Photoshop, Illustrator, or InDesign, or as Jesús said, even if you use the combination. We are super happy and we look forward to see your work. Great. So I'm going to jump into my screen right now and we're going to, let's see actually if I can show the artist page, one of the artists that we are featuring. Jesús is going to take care of the amazing artist of that you can see featured also on our cover for this week, while I'm going to be looking at a logo created by Nikusor Duman, which is based in Germany. As you can see from his Behance page, which is behance.net/Nikusor Dorman, and I hope that I pronounced that correctly. I'm really sorry if I'm butchering your name. But you can see right away that it really works intensely on logos, We see different illustrations. I really love the way that it works with a combination of images and text. And I think that Nikosor, you're doing a very fantastic job in terms of keeping together the actual text, the color palette, and the imagery as well. So your portfolio really struck me in terms of how consistent you are with your style. I think it's really cool. And the file that Nikosor has submitted is for, I believe, like a wine label. And here it is. It's called Vine and Berry. And he's looking in particular to enhance and find the other ways in which to display this particular logo. And perhaps maybe other little different combinations. So the first thing that I observed that I usually go look for is the layers panel, and it looks like it's work with just by keeping one layer. By the way, having one layer in pretty much all the Creative Cloud apps is the standard, as the layers work as a container. So each single file will have by default at least one layer that will contain all your graphics and any sort of artwork or text you might import or create inside of your document. So it looks like Nikosor hasn't created multiple layers. I will suggest to create multiple layers because it will allow you more flexibility. So for example, look, all these other extras that he has here, which I believe they are just working copies, which are far away from the main artboard in which you can see his final version, I believe. You know, there are ways in which you can trim away everything that is outside the artboard, and you can do so by using the view menu and clicking on trim view. So for example, if the client comes in, or if your director comes in, you can clean the artboard right away. But there is even an easier way, and which is exactly by using the layer. So we can head to the layers panel and click on the create new layer, which is the little square with a small plus icon, and we can just simply select all the elements that we want to move into the layer. And from here, you can press Command C to copy them and delete. And we're going to head into the new layer and press Command F to paste them in place. So very simply, we can toggle the visibility by clicking on the eye icon. And basically, whenever we work, we can hide every sort of work in progress and spare shapes or copy that we have created just maybe for safety, or because we're going to keep some editable graphics in there. We can hide them, and it will just help us to move forwards in our creation. So that will definitely be my first tip. And of course, if you work with multiple layers, is always recommended to name them in order to make sure that you know what sort of graphics you are selecting when you're selecting your layers. So I'm gonna double click on the layer in order to rename it, and I'm gonna call the blue one finals, because it seems that that was this final presentation, and the other one WIP, that's what I usually call them, which stands for work in progress. So that's how I use the abbreviation. And now let's have a look at the actual logo at the file here. So I'm gonna use the work in progress version, and what I'm gonna do is to select a copy and simply move it downwards so we can have more space in our pasteboard to work with it and to rework it, of course. The first thing that I noticed when I was working is that certain letters seems a little bit thicker and other they seem thinner, and I was struggling to understand what was going on. And then I started to move it around, and look what happened. Certain letter has 2 copies, so look at that, and other have 3. So you know, I had to keep going and delete and try to understand how many copies I was left. This could be just a simple mistake created by pasting in place twice, which, you know, may happen, and not a problem with that. But I had the feeling that Nikosor was trying to get the text a little bit more heavier. So it was creating multiple copies to create a heavier look. Now, you don't have to necessarily create copies, and that's definitely not the easiest way to work. There are different workarounds. One can be creating a stroke by selecting your text and then head into the properties panel and simply adding a point value to your stroke. Especially when you're dealing with letters, I will never go anything more than 1 or really 2, depending of course on what sort of fonts are you working with. So that could be a really nice way of editing your strokes. Or you, with the text selected, you can head on the object menu and select path. And from here, you can select offset path. By clicking on offset path, you will be able to create an offset, so a movement of your stroke, of your path, either outside or inside. Of course, in order to create it outside, the offset, which I'm going to zoom in here into the little window that has popped up when we have selected the offset path. We need to use a positive number, so anything from 0 to any number you want, and of course the larger the number it is, the bigger and the larger the offset is going to be. Well, if you want to create an offset, so another stroke which is inside and move the path inside, we're going to have to work with negative numbers. So as you can see, this line is very, very thin, so we can just appreciate a -1 pixel effect. But as I said, because we want to make it bigger, probably going to go for a 2 pixel. Something that is very cool to note is also that we have control over the joints, which are pretty much the corners and all around the path, the corners around the path. And we can establish to have a meter, which is usually a squared corner, round, which as the word says round, and bevel, which will give a diamond shape to your edges and to your corners. Fantastic. I'm going to keep it to round, although this shape is pretty rounded up. We don't have any corners sticking out, so we cannot fully appreciate it, but I'm actually going to create a stroke so you can see the difference right away. And I'm going to do that by selecting the, maybe we can just, let's see if we can just select the segment tool. There we go. And I'm just going to create segment here. See if we can have a look at the edge here. So I'm going to go back to the object, path, offset path. And as you can see, set to round. So we have a round edge. Meter, we'll keep it straight. And bevel will create a diamond shape. Now, again, that was perhaps the best example to show in a very, very quick manner. But as I said, for this kind of text, like the one that Nikosor has selected, it doesn't make a great difference because the path is already quite bold itself. Oh my God, I'm gonna have a little water, I'm sorry.
Now, Kladi, before you continue, I don't want to interrupt you earlier. There was a question from Anne. It says, I have a question. How do I integrate my Photoshop files if I want to send you an InDesign file? And yeah, so RB commented there's a package option in InDesign. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Absolutely. So let's jump into InDesign, and there is definitely a package option, but there are also another way in which you can send simply the file without packaging it. Although packaging is also a great way. Let's see if I have any file that I can easily share here. I'm gonna try and open. Okay, I'm gonna open one of my clients' menu. It's actually a wonderful cocktail bar based in the Bay Area, which is, I believe, finally reopened this weekend. And yes, graphics. Now let's imagine that those graphics are photos. So let's see if I can actually bring in. Oh, I'm actually gonna bring in the photo of your artist today. It's not gonna be the same that you're gonna working on, but okay. So let's bring in this image. Oops. I'm gonna start fresh. I'm gonna start fresh with a new file. I think it's so much better because I just thought that it was a photo there, but I realized that they're just graphics. So let's actually use an example that as a photo so we can show how that works. Fantastic. So as you've seen, I've created just a single page a document here on my InDesign, and then from here all I have to do is to bring in my image. And now that the image is in, how do I send this file, making sure that the image is embedded in my file? Well, something that you want to do is simply to head to your window menu, then select the links panel, which contains any image that is linked inside your document, and make sure to select one or all the images that are included. Then head to the flyout menu at the top right of the links panel, and make sure that with your images selected, you click on embed link. By embedding the link, the first difference that you will see is that inside the panel, this little icon, which almost looks like a Photoshop Smart Object icon, will come up next to the name of your image, and that means that your file, your image is now embedded. Of course, this will work for flattened image. So what I will receive is a flattened image. I will not receive a a Photoshop working file. So I will not be able to go back and edit it in Photoshop. A way to work around it is perhaps to put your document inside a library, and then you can share with us in your email. You can just simply share with us your CC library. In that way, through the library, maybe Jesús can also have a look at your file. The other option that was mentioned was packaging. So by packaging your file, here, as you can see, you'll be able to include, once you package a file and just simply click on package, you include, you will need to save your file. Sorry, I didn't save your file first. I'm just gonna call this one test and place it on the desktop and click on save. And then again, when we go under file and package, you can also use the shortcut Shift Option Command P, that's Shift Control Alt P on a Windows, and then click on package. What InDesign will do, it will create a folder that includes all the graphics and all the fonts, basically everything that belongs to your file. And this is a fantastic way to prepare and ship files for printers, because it very often happens that maybe the printer doesn't have the same font that you have, or the images may not be linked, or maybe you thought that you linked it, then you updated the link, and for whatever reason, packaging, it is the safest option for you to share your file, because InDesign will create, and let's go and retrieve the folder from my desktop. Here it is. InDesign will create a test folder containing an IDML file, which is a template file that can be used in order to edit the file without modifying the original one. Then we have a copy of the original InDesign file and any other associated content. In this case, as you can see, the image is added as a separate file as well. So this is a very safe way. And of course, if we had some fonts, if we had any text, you would have found a folder with the fonts in there. It's a fantastic way to share your file. So I'm really glad. I think Anne asked the question in the chat. Thank you so much for those very useful questions. We get to share all the amazing tips. So I hope that was that clarified how to do that. And the very third option, to reply to your question, you can submit both files. So if you wish to submit an InDesign and Photoshop files, you can also submit two files. So just for clarity, if you want Jesús to work on your Photoshop file, we'll be able to access them separately. What happens the majority of the time when you are selected for Rework It, we're going to send you an email sharing an uploader link that will allow you access to a Dropbox folder where you can simply apply any file that you want that are relevant for your project. Great. So, yeah. Sorry, Jesús, you were saying?
Oh, no, I just said awesome. Yeah, great.
Okay, fantastic. Let me know if there is any other question. Super happy to take questions and help the way that I can. So let's go back and rework this logo. Another thing that I noticed is that when I started designing, I did work very often with extended logos. So I was as well a designer that used to create all these long lovely logo, which are great when you think about letterhead, business card, and the printed media. So the more traditional way of approaching a logo type. Although it becomes, especially nowadays where everything is digital, it becomes a little bit harder to imagine a logo like this inside, for example, an Instagram image or a Facebook avatar profile, because whenever you're going to have to shrink and encapsulate this logo into a circle, inevitably you're going to have to shrink the text. So legibility will definitely not be prominent. So my suggestion for something like that will be to break the text apart and try to create what is called a cap lock. So, you have to imagine to create a shape, which is usually a rectangle or a circle, in which you embed and include all the elements together. So what I'm going to do here is to select the letter A in order to activate the selection tool, and then click and drag over the part that I want to separate. In this case is the word vine, and then press the letter V. So we have selected the pixel that we want to move, and then with the letter V we activate the selection, and we can now move it in this case on top. Of course, depending on the priority and on the hierarchy, I don't know if there is more vine or is more berry. I don't know if there, that's depending totally on your content. You can also play with the size. So let's say that we have more vine than berry. We can make the word vine a little bit bigger. And we are creating already a cap lock, so a locked pieces of type and images that follows what is called the psychology of Gestalt. Now, I know this seems like a mouthful, but what it is in reality is just a theory of perception that says that elements that are placed next to each other are read much faster and also memorized faster. So by doing so, not only you're going to be able to very easily imagine how now this logo can fit very beautifully inside any circles. And I'm going to just create maybe a white circle here just to show you. But you can see the difference right away on how the logo is going to look so much bigger and can be used into a circle and for social media, rather than having an extended version that will be so much smaller in comparison. And let me just, I'm gonna have to use, we're on separate layers. That's the reason why that wasn't showing up, because as you can see, it had a blue outline. That means what is in a letter below, which also reminds me to mention that whenever you work with layers, you have to remember that the order of the layer stack is paramount. Is very important, because anything that is located on a layer below, it will be overlapped and covered by whatever any graphics that sits on the layer above. So the order of the layer stack reflects the order of the way that your graphics are going to be displayed inside your document. So make sure that if something has to display on top, you want to display and move the layers on top. And by the way, the number, sorry, not the number, the position of the layer is something that you can edit at any time. So if we head to the layers panel, all you have to do is to click and drag the layer, and as you can see, we can move it above or below at any time. So don't worry about that. You can always fix that, add more layer, delete a layer. They're super flexible. But already look at what a difference has made by creating a cap lock, and the legibility. You know, I can even go back and shrink my graphics, and I'm still able to read the one with the cap lock. Of course, something else that I've done here is that I created an outline for and an offset path for the path that were on my type, and I didn't do the same for the path that were located on the illustration. So of course, make sure to keep your work consistent, and in this case I believe we did a 2 pixel offset. Here it is. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Maybe I will refine it. I'm not too happy with this 2 pixel look, but that just to give you an idea and to remind you on how to make your line thicker. And perhaps I think I have a few more minutes left. I can show you one more trick for this logo in particular, which was, you know, I really loved what Nicosor was doing there with the idea of using the grape and the glass. And I think that really represent what we've seen is in his portfolio in terms of integrating images and text. So we're actually using the Y as if it's like a cup or a glass of wine, and it's a very strong image. I will go a step further. If that's the direction in which you are heading, why not to, you know, even merge the image a little bit more? So we have the grape, we have the glass, but is the glass really round? I understand that that's part of your berry grape, but why don't we really make it into a glass? And in order to do so, all we have to do is to select our round shape and then click on the curvature pen tool, and then let's go ahead and bring down one of the point, and we can perhaps add another one. And the reason why you're not seeing much is because we created an offset path, which pretty much created 2 single paths. But look at what I've done here. So I'm going to actually redo it with only 1 path, because I think it's going to be so much easier. So all I've done is double clicked inside my graphic in order to enter the isolation mode, which you can see from the top bar here. And by double clicking on it, I can enter the isolation, which means I can enter the group of graphics, and then just select the little red dot that I wanted to work on. And then again, from the toolbar, you can select the curvature tool, which looks like a pen tool, but it's got like a little wiggle next to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and hover on top of my little round shape and click once in order to add a new curvature point, anchor point, and I'm going to move it down in order to create almost the feeling that there is some wine in the glass. Just like so. So we have an half full or half empty, depending on the way that you see life, glass of wine, which I think
let us know in the chat if you're a half full, half glass kind of guy. I'm a half full kind of guy.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. So this is the best tips that I will suggest. So definitely bring in the text together. Try to work and experiment with cap locks. Try to move the parts. And again, it doesn't have to be wine and berry on the top. Maybe you can win wine and then just the word berry at the bottom. This is just a solution that I offered for Rework It. But I will definitely recommend also to perhaps look something that is center aligned and to move the image. Something that I think, working with when I played with this image was to also from the properties panel, you can mirror and reflect the illustration, because it just gave me the feeling that, I don't know, like there was a little bit more of a shape that would have allowed us to have the text sitting on the other side. And I'm gonna try to do it over here.
By the way, Noor has the slogan already in the chat. I like the slogan for the company.
What does it say?
Have a glass of berry wine and everything will be fine. Will be, oh my God. Have a glass of berry wine and everything will be fine.
Oh, that's
That's
super
a tongue
cool.
twister.
That's super cool.
Steve says, I'm gonna get a bigger glass guy.
I agree. I might join your team. Right, as you can see, that's what I've done here. Simply move that from the other side so it can allow you space to fit your other graphics. And before I go and I pass to Jesus in order to work on Photoshop on the wonderful other artist file that is submitted, I want to remind you that another way of presenting logos is to create a nice color palette, just to create a little, move a little bit, one extra step to really talk to the client, to explain the work that you've done and the way that you intend to use these colors. And the reason why I'm saying that is because today at 7:30 British time, which I believe is 12:30 or 11:30 Pacific time.
11:30.
Yeah, 11:30 Pacific time. I will be back with the Illustrator Creative Challenge, and I'm actually hopefully able to give you a little sneaky peek on what we're going to be working on today, because we're actually going to be working on a logo in Illustrator, and that's the exactly brand research that I was suggesting to show to the client. As you can see, we have a little bit more of an explanation of the sort of font research that we've done, and also we can explain the color palette in terms, those are going to be our main colors, and those other ones are going to be our accent colors that maybe we can use for the website or for the business card or for any other application. I just think that is a much neater way in which you can talk your client through the choices that you made and why you decided to do what you did with your file. So make sure to tune in afterwards with the Illustrator Creative Challenge, because I look forward to design more logos with you. But now it's Photoshop time. So I think we can jump into your screen unless there is any other question.
Yeah, let us know if there's any other questions, and let me just get I should have the file ready. Okay, I have the file ready now.
Fantastic. I'm going to move into your screen.
Awesome. And actually, what I also need to do is bring up the my web browser so we can give a shout out to Subhame. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but this is the artist that we're featuring. He's from Kolkata, India. And this is actually the project that he submitted. So this is what we're going to be working on today. And it's a fantastic, fantastic piece. And he has a lot of good work on here. So make sure that you check him out. And you can see all the work that he's done. And he's also a Barcelona fan. So let us know what team you guys follow. So that's pretty cool. I'm a Barcelona. See, the thing is, I don't like saying that I'm a Barcelona fan because everybody thinks I like Barcelona now, but I like Barcelona from like the 90s. So, yeah. But if I say it now, everybody's like, oh, you're like, jumping on the team that's doing well. I guess they're not doing so well right now. But
and
anyway.
I think you had also a sneaky peek inside the behind the scene of the Barcelona stadium.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, is that on my Instagram? No, it's not on. I didn't post that one on Instagram, but I do. I was in Barcelona inside the stadium, Camp Nou. But anyway, so let's jump into Subhame's piece, which is this one right here. And actually, you know what? I accidentally brought down the chat. Let me bring it back up in case I look over to see if there's any questions. Cool. So it's a fantastic piece. There's not so much I need to say in terms of artwork. The art, I think, is fantastic. It's more about organization, more about small technical details that I'm going to show Subhame how to fix. And the most first of all, I'm not really, this is actually an animation, and I'm going to play the animation for you. If you go into Window Timeline, you can enable the animation panel, and I think the animation is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it works, but I'm going to work more on the actual details in the actual image. So I'm just going to hit the play button so that you can see the animation. You can see as the animation is playing, we get this green bar. So Photoshop is essentially rendering the image, and everything that is in green here is already rendered. So once it gets to the end, it's going to come back to the beginning and just play it smoother now that the entire thing has been rendered. So notice how it's choppy at the moment. But when we get to the end, it comes back and just plays it normally. And the way he's creating this effect is by having, as you can see, several hue and saturation adjustment layers that end at different points. And I believe that there is an opacity animation in there as well. So this is the animation that he created, but I'm not going to focus on the animation today. I'm just going to focus on the actual image itself. But I wanted to show you the animation. Cool. So if we scroll to the top, you'll see that we have the hue and saturation adjustment layers. So we're creating the effect that I was discussing. I'm a big proponent of having all your layers organized. So instead of just having a ton of adjustment layers, like you see there, you can just select them all by holding Shift and clicking on the first and last adjustment layer, and it selects them all. And you can press Control G on Windows, Command G on the Mac to put those into a group. And actually, it looks like I missed one. So let me undo that and add the missing adjustment layer. And I can just make these, the hue sat group. Also, I'm a big fan of labeling your groups with a color. That way they're easier to spot. So I can just make this group red. So see how much cleaner just by doing that the layers panel is looking. So we have a text, just one single text layer. So I probably won't put that into a group. Then he did something very ingenious, which I really like. He created this noise adjustment layer, but it's not just regular noise, is colored noise. So the way he created that was, my assumption is that he created a probably like a beige layer and then filled it with noise that is not monochromatic. Probably went into filter, noise, add noise, and then uncheck monochromatic. And as you can see, it looks pretty much the same. So maybe he had a lower amount, but that's how that was created. And then he changed the blending mode to, I believe it was linear burn, if I'm not mistaken. No, it wasn't linear burn. It was, oh my God, I already forgot which one he used. Let me just undo that. But he did it really, really cool here. Let me see. How did he do it? Linear burn. Yeah, it was linear burn, and reduced the opacity to 45%. And he created that effect there, which I think looks fantastic. So good job on that. The one thing that I would say is name your layers. So call it noise. And then we move on to the main subjects of this image. And this is where we're going to start doing a little bit more of work. He created these shapes around the glasses and added these colors. You can see how this is the original lens, and he created a vector shape. The one thing that I am going to suggest here is to try to get the shape
A good job on that.
Closer to match the, it's okay. Closer to match the lenses. You can see how there's a black outline here that doesn't look very good. So what I would do with that is select the lens. You can call it, just so that you always stay organized, you can call it like R for right, and then call it lens. That way it's easier to see or to spot. Another reason why it's good to name your layers is if you have the move tool selected and you right click over your image, Photoshop will show you a drop down of all the layers that are found in that specific pixel that you click on. So if you wanted to select the layer, you can just right click with the move tool and then select the layer that you want. But if every layer is like layer 16, layer 12, you don't really know what it is. But if you name your layer, you know exactly what it is. So right lens, and it automatically selects that layer. So let me try that again with like a different layer selected. So I can right click and then select lens, and Photoshop selects that layer immediately. So it's a much faster way of selecting your layers. So being sure that you organize your layers and you name them also can help you work faster, not just stay organized. But anyway, with that layer selected, you can select something like the curvature pen tool, and then you might notice that there's an outline here, a blue outline. If you don't, you can just always hold Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, and just try to find the edge and click, and then you'll see these white dots. Then you can start adding points and try to match the curvature of the lens a little better so that you don't have that black outline. But I think that by adding these extra points, it makes that outline look much better and the glasses look better, much better overall, and you don't have that weird black just on the edges. Also, another thing, it looks like I didn't do that good of a job here, so let me just add a few more points.
Well, you had a few more points, Jesus. I'm sorry. The reason why I jumped into the video, as you probably heard, is because I was really keen to reply to Caroline, who was sharing with us the portfolio. So the best way for us to see your work is to submit your file for Rework It, so we can actually have a proper look at your files and your portfolio. So I'm sure Sam is going to place the link. So Caroline, if you want us to look at your file, make sure to submit it for Rework It. We look forward to see it.
Right. Yeah, iamkladi.com/reworkit. That's the website. Anyway, so in this particular, um, with the glasses here, I'm not liking it that it's so sharp. So what I can do is just maybe feather it a little bit. And actually, let me select the tool that is not the curvature pen tool or a vector tool. That way I don't see the outline. I can see the feather better. But notice that as I feather this, it just blurs the edges, right? So maybe a sharp edge here wouldn't be the best choice. So I can just add just a tiny little blur, and that will give me a much better edge, which will match the actual image better. But because if you notice, there's nothing really that is super sharp on the image. It's actually, you know, a bit blurry. I mean, you can look at the edges here on the glasses. So it doesn't really make sense that this edge will be super sharp and nothing else will be sharp in the image. So I think that just adding just a little bit of feather, which blurs the edges, is much better. And this is non-destructive. You can bring it back to 0 and then you have the sharp edges again. But I think that just blurring them a bit makes much better sense. Also on the other side, we have a different kind of problem. So let me see, is it this side? Yeah, it's this side. So notice how he didn't quite match the edges of the lens. And my guess as to why that was is because we have these highlights here that create that bevel around the frame. So you can try to match those if you want, but to be frank with you, some cases it might be easier to just make your own bevel. So you can enable the curvature pen tool again and hold control, click on the edges, and just make sure that none of the bevel is showing this time. And this time I'm shaping the lens exactly how I want it, the frame around the glass there. And what you want to do is double click to the side of the layer and just simply add a bevel and emboss adjustment. And what you want to do is just take the highlight mode to screen, set it to 100%, and then you can select the shadows and select the color of the shadows that are actually found in the image, and you can just adjust the opacity accordingly. And then you can also move the angle so that the highlight matches the actual image, and you can soften it a bit so it's not so sharp, and adjust the size. I think we actually had it pretty good in the beginning, and I think it might be too dark on top, so maybe even reduce the opacity a bit more and just adjust it accordingly. So this is before and after, and I think it adds a lot to the image because that's more or less how the original frame was. So it just looks much better. And I know at the end of the day, when you're looking at it at 100%, it's not a big, huge detail, but I think that it does a lot in making it more realistic. You can see it here. See that?
I think super cool, Asus.
I think it does a lot. Yeah, and you can also do that same thing for the other side if you want. One other thing that something else that I'll mention is that he added everything into this folder, which is okay. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But within that folder, maybe we could also separate things. So I'll call this main, and in here, you can see that we have the glasses here. So maybe I would put all the glasses into one group. So, so this is the glasses. There we go. Just to keep everything much more organized. Then we have this layer, and this is really what I think one of the biggest things that need to be fixed here is that he deleted the pixels off the original image. So you can see how there's transparency in this layer. You can see the thumbnail here, but then you also added a layer mask. And then right here, you can actually see more of the original image. So let me disable these layers so you can see what that looks like. So let me enable this one, and I'll unclip it so you can see. So this is basically what the original image looks like. And I think that I would have kept the original background instead of just deleting it, because if I zoom in, you can see that some of the edges are not, see how he cut into this part of the hair that doesn't look really good, and there's no way of bringing that back. I mean, I guess you can clone stamp and do all these things to try to bring it back, but that's just too much work. So I would have stuck with an adjustment layer, I'm sorry, a layer mask, so that I could bring back any detail that I accidentally lost, just to keep everything editable. So that's a huge drawback of not using layer mask. If you make a mistake, you can't come back and change it if you do not use a layer mask. If you delete pixels, if you use a layer mask, you can always come back and make changes. And it's surprising that he did that, because he did use a layer mask up here on the other layer. So I'm not sure why he decided to not use a layer mask in the bottom, but use one on top. So that was a bit unusual, but it is what it is. So just try to not delete pixels, try to use a layer mask. Also, another thing, if you are going to be creating images where, for example, in this case, we have the women standing here, and then we added these elements over their glasses. If we want to readjust the positioning of the layer, and I move them just a little bit, now I have to move the glasses as well, or try to select them both before I move. So I would recommend just selecting all the layers that depend on each other, like the glasses and the lady standing here, and this original layer here. And by the way, I'm holding Control and Windows, Command and the Mac, and clicking on the layers so that I could click on this button here, the link button. So now these layers are linked. So when I move one layer, like if I can select one layer, doesn't matter which layer I select, that is linked, it will also move all the other link layers. So what is the difference between a link layer and a group, or linking layers and a group? A group could be used for the same purpose, but a group is mainly used for organization. You can also use it to composite things by changing the blending mode, or something similar like this, where you want to keep everything that belongs together, so that you can move everything that belongs together just with one move. You can definitely use it for that, but its main purpose is organization. A link layer, its main purpose is having layers that are connected to each other, so you can move them around. If you move one, they will all move together, and the layers don't have to be in the same group. They can be in different groups. So that's the advantage of using link layers. So notice how I have an entire group linked to this layer and to this layer. They all are in the main group, and that's okay. I could link any other layer. I could link his name. Like, I'll do that just to show you guys. So I'll select the link layer, and then I'll select his name, and then I'll link it, right? So it's outside of all of that group. So when I select the name and I move it, it also moves the name. You see the texture at the bottom? So that's what I'm talking about. So I would highly recommend that you use linked layers if you're working with subjects that have other elements that depend on it. Again, the perfect example is the glasses, because if you want to move them, to reposition them within the composite, then the glasses need to move with them. And it's a whole lot easier than selecting both layers every time you want to move something, or putting them into a group if it disorganizes your layer stack. So a lot of times you can't have all the elements that you want linked in the same group for various reasons. So using link layers is very, very beneficial. And if you want to unlink something, it's very easy. Just select the layer that you want to unlink and click on the link icon, and it's no longer linked. So now when I select this link layer, I can move around, but the glasses don't move with them. But in this case, I do want to have the glasses linked. And yeah, so that's something that I really, really recommend that you should use. Cool. Let me see what else I wanted to show you guys. Okay, so the other thing is that I wouldn't keep layers that are just not doing anything. Like in this case, we have a background layer, so just delete the layer. There's no need to keep it. Also, I see here that you have a layer called layer 0, and there's really nothing in there. And I know that there might be like a little tiny baby pixel in there. The way that I always try to see if there's something in there or not is I'll hold Control on Windows, Command the Mac, and click on the layer thumbnail. And if Photoshop tells me there's no pixel selected, that means there's nothing in that layer, right? Because in this case, if I put Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, and click on the ellipse, I select the entire layer. So that's just one quick way of me finding out if there's something in that layer or not. So in this case, if I do that, Control on Windows, Command on the Mac, and click, Photoshop tells me there's nothing there. So then I know there's nothing there, and I can delete the layer. Another thing that you can do is when you're done with your composite, or even as you're working, you can go into File and go into Scripts, And you can select delete all empty layers, and Photoshop will delete all the empty layers in that composite, or it doesn't have to be a composite design, whatever it is that you're working on, just to keep everything as organized as possible. And what I will also do in this case is I probably will take all these layers, put them into a group, and I will call this layer, or this group, sorry, background. And why not? Let's give it a label, and I'll make it yellow. And then what is inside this group? This, I guess that's a design element, so that's part of the background. So I would take that in there as well, and just call it like, I don't know, I don't even know how to call that pattern, but I guess I'll call it pattern, since it's probably the only pattern that I see in there. But there you go. This is exactly how I would do all of that. Oh, that's actually a very good point. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Uriel. He says, I like to use an outer glow in a funky color and set the stats all high up to find stray pixels in a mask layer. That's definitely something that you should do. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel. In case, actually, I'll look it up now that I'm mentioning it. It shows you how to do that. I don't even know what I call that video, to be honest. Let me just see if I can find it really quick. But basically what it is you create a stroke around a mask so that you can see the imperfections. Let me just quickly, if I can't find it like in 30 seconds, I'll just do it. I guess I'll do it right now to show you guys, but I want to show you like a full length video that I did just to talk about that. And it's a short video too. I just don't remember what I called it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. So let me just put it here in the screenshot so you can see what it is. It's called a powerful trick to make better cutouts in Photoshop. Avoid embarrassing mistakes. And I'll explain what I mean by avoiding embarrassing mistakes. But I'll also copy the link and I'll paste it in the chat.
I was sending it to Sam so I can actually share a clickable version, but it's fine. I'm sure you can grab it from there.
Pasted it in the chat. And basically what it is that it's probably not going to work well in this case because I think the mask is fine, but we'll try it anyway. If you double click to the side of the layer to bring up the layer styles window, you can do a stroke and do an outside stroke and then make it a color that is super visible, like red. And in this case, it doesn't show red because there's a hue and saturation adjustment layer on top. But basically what happens is if there were any stray pixels, we would see, oh, actually I found one. I found one straight pixel. So let me just press OK and I'll zoom in. See that? See how we found this stray pixel right here? See that? You can't even see it, but it's right there because it's showing in orange. So that's what you have to do. Whenever you are done with a layer mask, you might want to throw a stroke up there just for a moment. And that will allow you to see any stray pixels. And the reason that I made I titled the video Avoid Embarrassing Mistakes is one of the first print jobs that I ever did. A client hired me to create postcards, I think they were. They're like little printouts like this. And I had a composite of a guy riding in a car and for some reason, I didn't notice a bunch of stray pixels by his hair, by his head. And they were not really that visible on screen, but when they were printed, they were very visible. So it looked really, really bad. So, I mean, it was the first thing that the client noticed when they saw the printout. They're like, what's going on with his head? And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even see that. So it was really embarrassing to have a really bad mask on a printout. But the one way that I could have avoided that is by adding a stroke to the layer. And then once I find my stray pixels, I can go into the layer mask and just paint with black in that area to try to hide whatever tiny little pixel was there. In this case, it like I couldn't see it. Let me undo that. Like I don't even know where it is, but it's in there somewhere. So why not just paint it away just in case it might be visible when you print it. And then when you're done, you can just delete the layer styles, and you can do so by right clicking on the layer style and select clear layer style, and it'll remove it. Or I wouldn't do this, but you could also disable it and it's gone. But since you'll never need it again, probably, I would just get rid of it. But that is exactly what your question was. And I'm trying to find the person's name, and I'm sorry if I if I can't find the person's name, yeah,
Is that
I think I lost.
Uriel?
Yeah, Uriel. Thank you so much, Uriel. Yeah, that's right. That's thank you so much for mentioning that, and that is exactly what that was all about. And yeah, so the next thing that I would do in this composite, again, it's super fantastic, is I would delete anything that you're not using. I don't know if you, for example, in this case, it looks like you decided not to use this shadow because the layer was turned off. If you decide not to use something, just get rid of it, or you know, like, or put it like in a, I don't know, label it somehow so that you know, usually what I would do is say something like this: keep question mark, and then what it is, shadow. And then now I know that, oh yeah, that's not something that should be enabled. Like in my mind, I'm wondering, should I keep this? Yes, no, I don't like it. All right, I'll delete it. So always make sure that you name everything. And I know I sound like a broken record, but like naming things is super important, even if you're working by yourself, meaning you have no other colleagues or art directors that are looking at your files. I know that you might be thinking, well, I always remember what everything is. You know, layer number 17, I know that's the background, or I know those are the glasses, but that may be true today, but in 6 months down the line, it might not be true. And it's always a good habit to just remember to name everything. And again, it helps you speed up your workflow. Remember, you can select the move tool, right click over the image, and then you can select the layers from here as well. So for example, here, look at this: layer 4, 12, 5, 19. I have no idea what those are, you know, but if they had an actual name, I could, you know, select exactly what they were, you know. So in this case, this one's a shadow, so I can just call this one like green shadow, so that I know that that's part of the shadow on the green here. So next time that I'm working on the image, when I right click, I will know that the green shadow is right there. See that green shadow? And I can select it. It selects it in the layers panel, and you can work much faster with that. OCD equals label layers. I wouldn't call it OCD. I would just call it, what would I call it? I would
Professional
call
way of
it,
working?
yeah, well, I would call it efficient workflow. Efficient workflow. Because to be frank with you, at the end of the day, what really matters is the image, right? So you can have all your layers labeled and, you know, color coded and all that good stuff. But if the image doesn't work, then, you know, you still have a problem. But if you can have a beautiful graphic and also have a beautiful layer styles organized, then you're, you know, way ahead of the game. The way that I like to look at it is almost like if you have a messy layers panel, it's like having a messy, dirty kitchen, but still cooking good food. You know, it's probably okay, like good tasting food. It's probably, you know, okay, you can get away with it. But if you really want to be like a top level chef, you have to have your kitchen in order. So that's the way that I look at it.
Totally.
Yeah, and this is again a fantastic composite. I really didn't have much to say in terms of like the actual image. I think it's great. One thing I would nitpick about maybe is this right here. And I think that might have been maybe even me making those weird adjustments. So what I'll do is I'll just press F12. F12 is to revert, just to see the original. Yeah, it looks like I accidentally enabled it. Oh no, I didn't. Yeah, it looks like it's still there. So let me undo that. Yeah, so it looks like I'm trying to figure out why that is. Oh, okay, I see what it is. So it looks like you have this cutout right here on top of the other image. So what I would do is just be very careful about that. So maybe you can just make a selection out of the yellow stroke here. And then in the layers panel, make sure that you fill that with black, since you want to hide everything there. There it is. And also, I'm not really sure why you decided to go with like this other image on top. I know you were trying to desaturate the image, but I probably would have just done it like maybe in a smart object, and then duplicated that smart object. And then if whatever you do to the contents of one, you do to the contents of others. So basically what I'm saying is I probably would have done it this way. Let me just, now that I'm talking about it, I guess I should do it. So the way that I would have done it is by converting
And by
this
us,
layer
you
into,
got less than a minute before we finish off, so.
oh no, all right, so I'll do it super quick. Smart object, filter, um not filter, what am I trying to do? Image, adjustment, black and white, press OK, and then duplicate that smart object, Control J, Command J on the Mac, and I can drag, actually, I'll drag the one down here to the top, right up here, and then I would just make a layer mask out of that, like so. And what am I missing here? Oh, I'm missing this layer mask on that clipping mask. And then on this one, I would just paint with white on the areas that I want to reveal. So I think you had the top part revealed. So maybe something like this, and that avoids that other issue. And that looks like I accidentally also hid these areas. So let me just hide them as well by filling with black. And there we go. So you would avoid that issue just by using basically the same layer. And if you make an adjustment to the smart object, the second smart object will update automatically as well. And I think this is just a little cleaner, a little easier to work with, and you avoid the issues that you were having here on the edges. And also I just noticed one thing. See that right there? That right there we would need to fix too. So you got to zoom in and look at those little details on the corners of your mask. But yeah, I think we're out of time.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was going to say like 30 seconds. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jesus. Thank you so much, everybody. Don't forget, I don't know if you have the page open already, but don't forget to head on iamkladi.com/rework it in order to submit your file to us so we can rework it during Adobe Live. We're going to be back here tomorrow, same time to rework your file, but there is more coming of Rework It. And don't forget to stay tuned here on Adobe Live because there are so many fantastic streams coming out. And of course, I'll see you later on with the Illustrator Creative Challenge. Jesus, thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.